Today we observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
It's not just a day to celebrate Dr. King's life and legacy, but also to reflect on his calls for justice and his nonviolent philosophy.
A nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon that oppressed people can use in breaking loose from the bondage of oppression.
You already know that Dr. King led many protests against Jim Crow laws during the Civil Rights Movement.
What you may not know, however, is that the world's largest peaceful protest in history is taking place at this very moment, and most media outlets are not covering it.
It's the farmers' protest, which began after India's federal government passed 3 laws privatizing farming virtually overnight, in September in the midst of a pandemic. Currently, there are over 2.5 million people on the ground in Delhi. Many marched hundreds of kilometers to get to Delhi. They've been camping on the ground for 2 months now and have pledged not to leave until the government repeals these laws. They've brought enough food and supplies to last them more than 6 months. Protesters include men, women, and children of all ages. Unfortunately, many have died in the rigid winter, but Punjabi singers have created protest anthems to keep protesters' spirits alive. Over 250 million people are supporting it worldwide with their own peaceful protests.
We're not going to get into the specifics of the laws and how they affect the farmers. There's plenty of content on the web that takes an in-depth look into those questions. What we want to emphasize is that just because a law exists doesn't mean it's a good law. Just take a look at the abhorrent Jim Crow laws of the past.
The point is, people who are directly impacted by these laws believe the laws are not right and they are peacefully protesting these.
And we can't blame them. Corruption is rampant in India. Indian politicians are almost always bribed by the wealthy, which results in laws not reflecting the will of the people, but rather the will of the powerful.
The farmers don't trust India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. An interesting fact is that Modi was initially denied a visa to the United States because of the human rights violations that happened on his watch.
So, what's the status of this protest now? Well, the Indian Supreme Court has temporarily suspended the 3 laws and created a committee to investigate the effects of the laws on the farmers. And the farmers, they're not happy with this committee concept since all the committee members have publicly voiced their biases in favor of the laws.
As the committee takes their time investigating, protesters continue to die from the harsh weather conditions.
The farmers are now planning on having a peaceful truck march on January 26th, India's Republic Day.
But we've learned that except for Punjab, local governments and state police have been oppressing the protesters. Police have been beating protesters with batons, burning the tires of farmers' cars and trucks, using expired tear gas that explodes into fire, and arresting farmers before they can even enter Delhi.
India's federal government has now asked the Indian Supreme Court to stop the protesters from protesting, asserting that the proposed march will disrupt and disturb the Republic Day celebrations and will cause an embarrassment to the nation, and would be bound to create a massive law and order situation.
You've got to be kidding me that the largest democracy in the world is prohibiting peaceful protests. The past 2 months have been peaceful, and the government has provided no evidence as to how or why the march on the 26th would be anything but.
The United Nations has clearly stated that governments cannot prohibit protests by making generalized references to public order or public safety.
Moreover, India is a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or the ICCPR. Article 21 of that treaty guarantees the right to peaceful assembly.
According to the United Nations Human Rights Committee, it's a fundamental human right for individuals to join a peaceful assembly, to express themselves, to celebrate, or to air grievances.
So far, other nations have been hesitating to get involved in India's matters.
But when it becomes a human rights issue, it becomes the world's issue.
If India continues to prevent peaceful protests, other countries in the UN may intervene.
An international day of action has been organized around the world to rally in support of the farmers in India on Republic Day.
So if you're in New York, there will be a protest in front of the UN on January 26th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. local time. If you're unable to get involved in that, we do encourage you to be informed and wish peace, health, and success to all of the farmers.